I wanted to share this palette with you because it's one that I really have loved having a studio palette of a limited amount of colors. This is 18 colors, and I have a whole video on this palette. I will link it below in the video description box. And I talk about using my muting colors over here, and these are duller colors over here. And then this is a more traditional palette. Well, what's happening is I made a color chart of this. And you can see some of these are so bright, they're almost neon-like. And if you've followed my channel for any time, you know that I no longer paint with this kind of vibrancy. A lot of mine is more muted down. Now, I love these like last three rows down here. I love something like this. I love the top section here. But these bright colors no longer suit me. So I thought I would take you through the process with me in what I'm getting rid of and why, but then also how I am figuring out what I'm going to add. This is Magello Shell Pink. This is Schminky Tundra Green. This is Van Gogh Raw Sienna. This is Daniel Smith Hematite Genuine. I have Daniel Smith Sepia. All of this top row is Daniel Smith. So, and Danthrone Blue, French Ultramarine, Green Apatite, Serpentine, Perylene Red, Quin Coral, Quin Sienna, Nickel Azo Yellow, Hunza Yellow Medium, and then I have Buff Titanium. This is Daniel Smith Lavender, Daniel Smith Sleeping Beauty, and Daniel Smith Opera Pink. So in this row here, I'm only keeping the buff and the lavender. So I've got a palette knife here. I'm gonna see if that works. So what I'm gonna do is just pry under the color here. I don't want Opera Pink anymore. I'm not using it the way that I was. There we go. And I've got just a little palette here that I'm putting them all on. I don't use the Sleeping Beauty. In order for me to mute, I usually use the Buff Titanium and the lavender. I used to use Sleeping Beauty a lot, but I find that I reach for lavender over and over and over again. Then we come to the yellows. I wanted to show you that I took every color out so that I could rearrange them without me having to play with the order that they were in. And what I did was just fill it all with water and let it sit for about 10 minutes. And then I just took a washcloth and rubbed each one out, and look how clean this came out. And what I'm using here, I thought I would try this. I have 91% isopropyl alcohol and just a paper towel. This is mine from rinsing my brush. And all I do is get a little bit on the corner there. And I just rub. I'm pressing, not too hard, but I am pressing. And look, it comes off. This was done with a Sharpie on the plastic. I couldn't believe when I saw it come off that easily. It's like brand new again. I love that. And what I'm going to do with what's left of my paint, a lot of times when I pull them out of my paint tube like this, you can cut them up, but I usually just wad them up a little ball, mark what color they are, and they're ready to go. A lot of times I use these in my travel palettes because it's a small amount of paint, and that way I can easily change it out. But that way, no paint is harmed in this video. I wanted to share the process here of eliminating colors and picking colors, because as I started pulling all of the paints off, I realized I have had this palette since 2020, and it might just be time to change everything. I kept a few colors, but I did overhaul quite a bit of it. Here's how I went about it. I looked at colors. Blue was my main concern because I didn't have blues that I liked. And I've been playing with some indigos and some Payne's Grays, And this was the original color here, which was Indanthrone Blue. And I wanted something not as bright. I ended up deciding to go with either the Isaro Indigo or else the Van Gogh Indigo, and I went with the Van Gogh. Here's the reason why. Let me bring this a little closer so you can see the colors a little better. So this is what I started with, and you can see how bright that is. I liked the Isaro, but I felt like it, again, might be just a little too bright, where the Van Gogh here is a little duller. I really liked some of the Payne's Grays, but they were just a little too dull for this limited palette, because I still do want something bright, like think of Van Gogh here, where I can mix something and do a cloudy sky or a bright blue thing of water or something like that, even a sky, where I think the Payne's Gray, it would take me a long time to get it vibrant enough. And I also had a bunch of grays and buff titanium, so this was my selection of that. Now, this is American Journey French Gray, which I used a lot in the Artful Advent calendar. And then this is Daniel Smith Buff Titanium. And this is the one that's been on my palette since I started watercolor, so back way in 2017. And when I was really looking at these colors, they're all so different. This is more of a truer, almost a yellow kind of color. This is the American Journey Buff Titanium. This one was the Da Vinci Titan Buff, and this one was the Isaro Beige Titanium. I ended up going with the Da Vinci Titan Buff because I like the coloration of that. Now, you can see that this one's a little grayer, so to me it's a little cooler. This one is just too yellow for me. This is the one I've been using, so I thought going even a little more neutral. It was between these two. And I decided to go with this one because it's a little lighter than this, but it also kind of has a greenish cast. Can you see that? Let me try to hold it real still. Where this one seemed to lean more brown and that one seemed to lean more raw sienna. So I went with this one and I'm excited. This is like a new change for me and a pretty big one, because if you followed me for any amount of time, you know I use buff titanium all the time. And then my quest for raw sienna here. This is the one that I currently use, which is Van Gogh Raw Sienna. But I did try a bunch of different ones to see if there were any that could compete. And I did really like this. This is the Da Vinci Raw Umber Natural. But I was a little worried that it was a little too brown, because as you'll see as we go along, I don't have that many bright colors. So I know this Van Gogh will brighten anything more than this. And so that's why I went with the little brighter Raw Sienna. And then we came up to oranges, reds, violets. Oranges I use a lot because I love to mix orange into any color. So I love it mixed with greens. I love it mixed with purples. I love it mixed with blues and browns. It's just a really nice color. This is the one that I had on my palette, which was the Daniel Smith Quinacridone Sienna. And this is the one that I decided to go with, which is Quinacridone, again, Daniel Smith, Quinacridone Burnt Orange. I just wanted something a little duller because once again with the sienna, I'm always dulling it down. Where this burnt orange, if you look at the two of them, they're close, but this one is just like a shade darker or more muted. So let me put my thumb on the two there. So you can see the difference. This one down here kind of seems a little more pumpkin-y, where this one seems a little more on the burnt sienna side. And I still wanted it to be fairly bright because I do like the addition of the bright oranges. When I was looking at the reds, I used Perylene Red and Quin Coral last time. And I barely used the Perylene Red. I used the Coral more. So that told me that I needed something a little different than just like a bright red. Perylene Red to me is like a Santa red. So as I was going through my colors, I pulled out the Venetian reds, I pulled out a little maroon color, and I really just like the tones of some of these. And let's see, let me bring it so you can see the reds here. These were the three that I was really contemplating in which red would I want. This one again was really quite red. This is the Da Vinci Alizarin Gold. I don't know if you saw the Da Vinci colors, but I really fell in love with that. And it is just enough on the like coralish side, I think with that gold in there, that is the one I went with. Normally I love this Daniel Smith Deep Scarlet. That is usually the red that's like in my 24 palette and in any of my other palettes, but I decided to go just a tad brighter here and a mix between a red and kind of a coral color. And then when looking for the shadow colors, you can see I've got quite a range here. So some of them are lean brown, some of them lean a little purple. This one here is Daniel Smith Purely Maroon. I used this when I first started, but I haven't really used it lately. So I stuck it on my palette and I'm gonna see how much I use it. Otherwise it will be a color that I pull off, because I know I can always mix some brown into this. And now that I have the blue, I can always mix a little bit of blue in there as well. And then we got violets. Now violets are a funny color for me because they're just like my oranges. I mix them with everything. I love violet and green together. It's like one of my favorite mixes. And for yellows, it tones it down because they are complementary, which means they're directly across on the color wheel. But I didn't have a purple in my original. And the one purple that I've been using is this one, the Da Vinci Artemis. And I really love it because it's separating, I'll show you, and it's granulating. I went from red violets. Then I have these four colors kind of separate, but I ended up going with kind of a bluer, more violet, but it leans just a tad blue. This is the one that I'm adding. But you can see all the texture. I wanted the purple to have texture so that it would add texture to every other color that it's mixing with. But do you see the color separation here? Isn't that gorgeous? I can't wait. I've had this on my little 24 palette for the past 2 years now, and I use it all the time. Then it came to greens. I definitely wanted a little more greens this time. All I had last time was Serpentine and Green Apatite. This is Green Apatite, and the Serpentine was a little more on the yellow-green side. So as I was swatching these out, I was really asking myself, what have I been using the greens for? And for me, it has always been nature stuff. So it is leaves, it is acorns, it is stuff outside, not so much inside. And think of flower leaves and that kind of thing. So I needed something a little duller, but I also needed something with a possibility to make it brighter. So here's what I went with on this one. I ended up keeping Tundra Green because I love the dullness. Do you just see how dull that color is? So I know this mixed with any of these greens is going to automatically dull it. This is Green Apatite by Daniel Smith. I love it for its granulation. But this is Da Vinci Joyce's Mother Green color. And the difference between these is in the lighter value. So look how bright green it is here where it's more watery. And look how dull the green is here. And that was my final decision there. By seeing the lighter value, I chose the Joyce's Mother Green. So I have Joyce's Mother Green, I have Tundra Green, and then I have this. It's a Holbein, it's called Yellow Gray. But I think this, with any of these greens, is going to be a beautiful mixing color. At least I'm hoping. So that's why I chose this Yellow Gray as part of it. And then I did not have Davies Gray. Now remember, I call this my superhero color, and it was not on this palette, so I've added it to this palette. And that left me with light colors. Like, how many light colors do I need in a palette? That's what I asked myself, how many? On the previous one, I had Shell Pink, Lavender, Opera Pink, Sleeping Beauty, which is more like a turquoisey color. But I knew I wanted to do a pink. So I have peaches here. So this is American Journey Apricot, Magello Jaune Brilliant 2, Magello Shell Pink, Da Vinci Peach, and this is Da Vinci Red Tint. So what I decided, let me bring that closer so you can see just from here over. Instead of the Opera Pink, I'm going with this Da Vinci Red Tint. The reason why, it's not as bright, but it is still bright enough it's going to lighten any of my colors. So it's going to lighten my oranges, it's going to lighten my reds, it's going to lighten my violets. It will probably even lighten the blues. And then it was between these. Which kind of color do I want? I've been reaching for apricot a lot over shell pink lately, and I think if you look at this tone, see how a little more muted it is than the shell pink? So I figured this and this will probably make a really beautiful shell pink. So I went with the apricot here and the Da Vinci red tint here. And then I wanted some kind of bright yellow. I got rid of my yellows. I had Hansa Yellow Medium and Nickel Azo Gold on the last palette, and I really never used them. I used raw sienna all the time. So I wanted something a little brighter and lighter. I ended up going, this is Daniel Smith Naples Yellow, and this is Schmincke Naples Yellow. I went with the Schmincke's Naples Yellow because it has less orange. Do you see how much oranger this one is than this? And this one seems a little more opaque, so I know I'm gonna like working with it. But that was the only reason that I chose this one. It was a little more pure in color, not as much orange. And then I kept Sepia, which was my dark brown. I kept Hematite Violet Genuine, which is my favorite all-time granulating color. It has kind of a flesh-colored undertone on it, the lavender and the tundra green. The rest is new, if you can believe that. I'm really excited about that. So I wanted to show you what my palette looks like now. And I wanted to show you a trick. Remember, I pulled off those clumps of paint with the palette knife. I was able to pull them off and reuse them here. I've reused the lavender, the sepia, the hematite, and this is the tundra green. So how I'm gonna do this to get it to stick, now I could just wet the bottom here and push this down in it and it will adhere. But I find if you add a little bit more paint to the bottom here, this is a color I use all the time anyway, so. I've got a little binder in there, I wanna get that out. Okay, and you can see that it was in the back. Do you see how square the corners are? So I'm gonna push that back here. Whoops. And just kind of press it down. And what that's gonna do now is seat it in. So the paint is here and the dried paint is going on top. So it's going to meld together, which is a good thing. I have my palette laid out differently than a lot of people do. A lot of people put them in the order that, you know, think of red, orange, yellow, that kind of thing, right? So I've got mine laid out differently. I've got my colors over here, which is the Hematite Violet Genuine, the Artemis, and the Tundra Green. Those three are the granulating colors. On this side, I have my muting colors. I have the Da Vinci Mint Green, Da Vinci Red Tint, the American Journey Apricot, and then the Daniel Smith Lavender. And then from here to here, I've kind of got them in an order that I would use them. So Sepia and Buff Titanium, I always reach for. So I wanted them on the right-hand side. That's Buff Titanium, or Titan Buff, and then this is Sepia. And then I went yellow, orange, red, dark red, blue, kind of the Davies gray, and then I continued my greens over here. So I have Schmincke Naples Yellow, Van Gogh Raw Sienna, Daniel Smith Quinacridone Burnt Orange, Da Vinci Alizarin Gold, Daniel Smith Perylene Maroon, Van Gogh Indigo, and you'll notice it's just a small puddle because I want to make sure that I like it before I really fill that one up. Holbein Davies Gray, Holbein's Yellow Gray, and then this is Da Vinci's Joyce's Mother Color. Tundra Green, Schmincke, Da Vinci Artemis, and then the Hematite Genuine. And I'm really excited to use this. It's a lot of fun colors in there, but also quite muted from the other palette. So I thought we could swatch them today and just see what we come up. So here is what the old one looked like, and we're going to compare that to the new one. Doesn't it already look really bright compared to the colors that I've talked about? So I've got them kind of put out here, and I'm just going to work around. Now I have them in the order from, I'm going to be working around this direction. And as I go, I'm going to be splashing because I like to see what they're going to do. I like to see in the lighter value. Like I said, that's why I picked the Joyce's Mother over the Green Apatite, because of what the lighter values did. I've got the name under there, but I'll tell you as we go. The first color is Hematite Violet Genuine. It is my all-time favorite color of Daniel Smith. I just love this color. I love everything about it. I use this a lot as my black. It's a granulating color. It separates into the most beautiful colors. When you're using granulating colors, you want to make sure that you use a lot of water because that helps the granulation show up. Do you see it already splitting? I love that. When I'm doing color swatches, I try to make a little dark at the top here, and then I'm going to splash. When splashing, I've got clean water. I dip 3 fingers in, just 3, to the first knuckle, and then I kind of flick onto the paper. Next we have Da Vinci's Artemis. This is another separating color. I don't really like using fresh paint, so bear with me, trying to get the hang of it here. I usually work in dried half pans. Wait till you see this color granulate. It's so lovely. I try to pick colors that excite me as well. You can hear, right, that I like granulating colors, that I want them to shift and change and add texture to my pieces. That's why I add water. That's why I do a lot of things to add the texture. That's a little better. Next is Tundra Green, and it's again a granulating color. This is by Schmincke. This has like a brown undertone, almost like a terracotta undertone. And when it separates, it's just so pretty in a green landscape. So think about for leaves or plants, anything that you want green. I like when a color does work for you, and that's what all these granulatings do for me, is they make my artwork more exciting. And I had nothing to do with that except for picking the color. The next color is Joyce's Mother color. I'm really excited to see what this green will do in my palette because I've been working with Green Apatite since I started too. It was one of my first colors, and I'm already liking the tone right there, that it's not so bright that I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to dull that down. It's already really beautiful and I can use it, and look how nice they go together. That will make a beautiful shadow to this. And if I touch a little bit of that Artemis in there, oh yeah, it'll be gorgeous. As I was pulling colors, it was very interesting to see how my tastes have changed. You know, I used to like a lot of the brighter colors, but I would always mute them down. So here I am picking a little duller colors, and I'm hoping that it works for what I want it to work, and I'm not going to struggle. Yellow Gray by Holbein. Now this color is new to me, but when I bought it, I really saw the possibilities right away. I was like, ooh, I can make this color work. Look how it's like the ugliest pea soup color, but it's a color that I use a lot in acrylics, and I just really love the tone of it. I think it will do wonders to the greens, but I also think it will be great for any of the oranges and the reds to kind of tone them down. And I stuck them in the green. It stuck it in the green instead of with the yellows, because it has a kind of, it leans very green to me, even though it's called Yellow Gray. Wow, this palette is exciting, you guys. Next is Holbein, the Davies Gray, my superhero color. I just love the complexity of this color. It's kind of blue and gray and green all at the same time, and I think that's why I like it so much, because it just goes with everything on my palette. It mixes beautiful with the apricot. It mixes great with the pinks. You wouldn't think so, but it does. If you want to see some other grays, Davy Grays, I did a whole comparison on Davies Grays, the different brands, but Holbein still did it for me. But if you want to check it out, you can. I'll link it in the description box below. Look at that little sneaky color over there. I'm impressed already, and we only had the 6 colors. That's pretty good. So now I've got the Van Gogh Indigo. The whole reason for me changing this whole palette around was this blue color, because it was absolutely driving me crazy. And look at that. See how much softer that is than the Indanthrone. Was kind of harsh to me whenever I put it down. I already feel much calmer seeing that go down on the paper, even just at that light value. I'm not like, oh my gosh, how am I going to tone that down or mute it? What am I going to add? How do I get rid of that brightness? And I know there's you bright painters out there that is like, how does she paint with this dull palette? It's what I got used to in acrylics and colored pencils, and watercolor is no different. It's the colors that I love. You know, we're all unique and we're all different, and we all love different areas of colors. So just embrace who you are and celebrate that. Wow, I'm so much happier with this than the Indanthrone. The next color is Perylene Maroon by Daniel Smith. I used to use this color all the time, and I don't know when I stopped using it actually. I think when I started mixing everything together and just muting down everything, but this is such a lovely color. This is like the deep shadow of an apple, a red apple. And it reminds me of definitely nature just by the tone of it. It's not too bright, it's not too dull, but yet it has a richness and a depth that is really beautiful. The Alizarin Gold by Da Vinci. Now this color I picked to kind of be a buffer of my Perylene Red and Quin Coral. And you'll see the difference. I mean, look at just the undertone here compared to that. Isn't it more corally? I don't find it as orange. You'll see when the burnt orange goes on. So that's why I picked this one instead of the deep scarlet, because I felt it was a nice combination of the two. I kind of surprised myself with how many Da Vinci paints went on this palette. And I just did a couple color swatching with the Da Vinci, so I will link that in the description box below. I do have a lot of playlists in case you're wondering and you like to see color mixing or color comparison. I have playlists for both of those kind of things, as well as sketchbook practices. This color just makes me happy. Next is Daniel Smith Quin Burnt Orange. Now see the difference here between those two. See how that is definitely more corally? And this is definitely on the oranger side. More like a dirty orange, burnt sienna orange. That's what I needed. That's what I was looking for, because I know if I mix this and a little bit of this, it's going to become a little more vibrant. I will be making a big mixing color chart of this palette. If that's something you would like to see, please leave that in the comments and I will make a note to make a video for that. Next is the Van Gogh Raw Sienna. Now with the yellow gray right above it, you can see how much greener that one is and why I have it in with the greens than this raw sienna. I could always brighten that with this yellow or with this raw sienna. Naples Yellow is next. I'm excited to have this color on my palette. I've never had such a light yellow on my palette before. It's just got me like really excited to use it. I hope that it is one that the water really separates when I splash. Hope I can see the texture. I hope it's not a flat color. By flat, I mean if everything else has texture and this one doesn't, I will be omitting that from my palette pretty quickly. So hopefully it will show some texture for me. I'm painting in a handmade sketchbook that has Fabriano studio paper in it. Cold press, 90 pounds. The handmade company is no longer making journals. They no longer are in business. But I have a lot of you asking me questions on where to find them. Search Etsy. Etsy is the best place for looking for handmade journals. You can search for your paper. You can search for how you want it bound. If you like Coptic bound or if you like it saddle stitched, however you like it. It's already worrying me that I can't see any water. The things I worry about, right? Okay, now we have the new to me Da Vinci Titan Buff. I feel a little disloyal to my Daniel Smith Buff Titanium. I've used it since the start. You can see it's much grayer, but it's kind of a combination of the light French gray and Buff Titanium for me, which I think will be nice to play with. And if I want to warm it up, I just add a little bit of the either yellow gray or else the Raw Sienna. But it does feel weird not seeing the Daniel Smith color on there. Next is Daniel Smith Sepia. It's my favorite brown. It's the only brown that I have on here too. A lot of people ask why I don't have more browns. I mix everything with brown to shadow to use as my shade color, and I just don't feel the need to add another brown because this one really does. If you look at it here like that, it's not orange, it's not yellow, it's not green, it is pretty much just a brown color, and I love that. And it's a dark brown color, so for me it's the perfect shadow for dark bark, like on a tree. But it also darkens everything. I use this in the Hematite Violet Genuine as my black, or my really darks if I need something really dark in my artwork. I don't like to use black because I feel like it just doesn't have any life in it, so I prefer to use a brown like this or that Hematite, which is the separating color and granulating color. Again, it's a personal preference. I would never tell you not to use black. If you like to use black, use it, because you know, we all have to go with what our gut tells us to do and how you like the results. The results are everything. It's really what matters. That yellow's worrying me. Next is Daniel Smith Lavender. This color is what I use for everything to mute it. If you've seen my shadow video, my shadow painting video, I use the lavender and a brown to create my shadows. I love lavender in the shadows because it's a nice color. Instead of just making a gray, the lavender gives it just a little bit of a lift. And if you haven't noticed yet, I like to mute colors with different colors, with something unexpected. And lavender is one that's been on my palette since I started. Apricot. It's such a pale color, but I use it a lot. Now you can see the tone of this here. See how it's kind of grayed down already? So just picture this with any of my colors that I've already mixed, and it's going to mute them even further. And because it has, I would think it has a little bit of white in it, because of how pale it is, it's going to make it a little more opaque. And I really like having the opportunity to use opaque and transparent in my watercolors. The next two are probably going to shock you. Just like when I had Opera Pink on my palette, everyone was like, I can't believe you have Opera Pink. I'm like, I know. But these are the next two. So this is Da Vinci Red Tint, and then I've got Da Vinci Mint Green. And I just think that this will be the brighteners for my palette. By that I mean, if anything needs to be a little brighter, like my purple, I will mix a little bit of this color into it. If my greens or blues need a little brightness, I will add the mint green color to it. But this is such a weird color, isn't it? The red tint. I just really, when I saw Da Vinci come out with it, I was like, I have got to get that color and just try it. And I've played around with it quite a lot in my Circle of Delight and really enjoyed playing with that, experimenting with it and seeing what it would do. The last color is Mint Green. Wait till you guys see this. It is like a shocking color. I can't even believe I chose this on my page. Look at that. It is so loud and very intense for me, even though it looks pastelish. But look at my other colors so you can see what I mean when I say it's bright for me. I hear you all laughing right now. Now I chose this color to lighten my greens and to take that navy or that indigo blue that I have, and I can create a teal with that. They're all dry. Don't they look beautiful together? Oh my gosh, such a huge difference. I'm going to show you the page before. So this is what the palette looked like before. Now I just want you to see the colors that stayed the same were these four and lavender. That's all I kept. Look at this. They're darker, they're richer, they're moodier, but yet I've got colors that I can lighten. I can lighten with this, this, and this. I can brighten all of those up. I can't get as bright as some of the colors that I had previously, but this palette suits me so much more because now I won't have to mute every color. And I've got such a beautiful range. I'm so excited to have this these three colors on my palette. Just the Artemis, which is the purple, the indigo, and then this Perylene Maroon. They're going to do wonders for my shadows because I've always been using the sepia on this page here. You can see sepia was my darkest color. So I was mixing everything with sepia to get my shadow colors. I would sometimes use Tundra or Hematite, but it was mostly sepia. But now look at the rich tones that I have everywhere. I can mix any dark color and it will just become a beautiful value. I'm going to bring you up closer, but before I do that, let me go through the colors again. This is Daniel Smith Hematite Violet Genuine, Da Vinci Artemis, Schmincke Tundra Green, Da Vinci Joyce's Mother Color, Holbein Yellow Gray, Holbein Davies Gray, Van Gogh Indigo, Daniel Smith Perylene Maroon, Da Vinci Alizarin Gold, Daniel Smith Quinacridone Burnt Orange, Van Gogh Raw Sienna, Schmincke Naples Yellow, Da Vinci Titan Buff, Daniel Smith Sepia, Daniel Smith Lavender, American Journey Apricot, Da Vinci Red Tint, and Da Vinci Mint Green. Look at the color separation. These three are my color separators. So look at this one separates into this brown. This one separates into the blue and the pink. This one separates into what I call a flesh tone or like a light apricot. Gorgeous. Mixing with others, they stand out beautifully. I'm so excited to have these three colors on my palette. The depth of that is incredible. Look at see how now it is a mix between these two? That's the alizarin gold. I really think it's like a corally red. It's really pretty. These three are going to be fun to play with. All I had there, I had the shell pink where these are. I had shell pink, opera, and let's see, Sleeping Beauty. So that was shell pink is up here. That's opera, and this is Sleeping Beauty. So this is what I placed them with. So I replaced the shell pink with the apricot, the opera pink with the red tint, and the Sleeping Beauty with the mint green. So that is how I reconfigured my 18 wells for 2024, and I hope it's inspired you to put together a palette that you love, that gets you excited. You can hear the excitement in my voice, right? I cannot wait to start painting with this. It's going to be great, and this is the basis for my 100-day project now. So I have a palette that's ready, and I just pull it out along with my 100-day project, and I'm ready to go. I can't wait to explore what color magic happens with this. If you were inspired by today's video, please like, comment, or subscribe. It will help my channel grow. Thanks for watching.